There is a continuing challenge for governments to see volunteer-based programs as a core part of our society's fabric. Volunteering is an essential part of a well-balanced, effective and inclusive civic society. I hope in the future to see core government funding for administrative needs of volunteer organisations to enable them to deliver effective programs without spending money on simple but necessary program administration.
那怎么样让政府把以志工为基础的计划视为我们社会组织的核心部分呢？到目前还是一个很大的挑战。志工服务呢是希望可以创造一个均衡、有效率而且共融的公民社会。那我也希望在未来可以看到政府呢，它提供一些可以给志工机构他们行政所需要的一些专款，让我们呢就不需要把钱花在一些很单纯但是很必要的一些行政上面，然后我们在进行我们的计划的时候可以更有效率。
The next step, with adequate funding, is to ensure that volunteer management is seen as a viable long-term profession. At present, there are very limited training opportunities worldwide for this sector and few formal qualifications.
那一旦有了足够的资金呢，我相信下一步就是要确保让志工管理被视为一项可行而且长期的职业。现在呢，全球对这个领域的训练机会仍然很有限，而正规的认证制度也非常少。
We need to recognise that first and foremost, recruiting and managing volunteers requires good communication and people management skills. However, to attract young people to see this sector as a viable lifelong career option and ensure the health of volunteer programs for the future, professional volunteer managers are essential.
而且呢，最重要的就是说，我们必须要认同志工的招募跟管理是需要良好的沟通跟人才管理技能的。所以呢，如果要吸引年轻人把这个领域视为可行的一个终身生涯的一个选择的话，我们必须要非常确保志工他们计划的健全。然后呢，我们也要认知到专业的志工经理人是很必备的。
This will also require government recognition. Most people who are employed within the volunteer sector do so because they are passionate about their chosen field, not for financial rewards. It's also the case that not-for-profit organisations generally do not have money for high salaries, and nor should they. There is a responsibility to donors to keep costs at a minimum.
另外呢，我们也需要政府非常强烈的支持跟认同。很多投身在志工领域的人呢，是因为他们会投身在这里，是因为他们很热爱他们所选择的这个领域，那并不是为了金钱的原因。那另外一个事实呢，就是这些非营利机构通常也没什么钱，所以也没有办法去支付高薪。就是大家募款募来的或别人捐赠来的钱，应该是要非常有效的运用。
However, there is a role for governments to consider options such as tax concessions for not-for-profit organisations. This would help to encourage high-calibre managers to choose not-for-profit organisations as their career option, while at the same time supporting essential volunteer outcomes.
那政府可以做什么呢？政府就可以考虑说，针对这些非营利机构，提出一些减税的或者是一些宽限的一些方案，这样子可以鼓励高素质的经理人选择非营利机构，然后来服务。另外呢，也可以支持这些基本的志工成果。
High-calibre management also gives volunteers the chance to learn from strong mentors and role models, ensuring that they receive lasting benefits as well as giving their time.
那这样高素质的管理人员呢，也可以让志工有机会向这些优秀的良师跟榜样来学习，并且可以确保，除非他们花了这么多时间，可他们在一生当中都可以从中获益。
Project selection for volunteers can also be challenging. There is nothing more disheartening for volunteers than being given a task to do which nobody else wants or which is totally unachievable. Good project selection enables volunteers to grow their skills and confidence and moves them forward to greater challenges each time. For most not-for-profit organisations, project funding is a continuing issue. The challenge is for governments, corporate partners and donors to help non-profits provide the infrastructure for projects so that they can be selected based on need rather than cost.
那对志工来讲呢，企划的选择也是非常具有挑战性的。如果你今天被分派到一个没有人想做而且不可为的一个任务的话，其实让志工感到非常沮丧的。所以妥善选择企划呢，可以让志工增长他的技能跟信心，然后让他们下一次会愿意面对更大的挑战。对很多的非营利机构而言呢，企划募款是一个持续的问题。那这样子的艰巨任务是让政府、企业伙伴跟捐赠者呢，希望透过他们的力量来协助这些非营利机构，然后为这些企划提供一些基础建设。那这样子在未来呢，就是志工要选择企划的时候，会依需求而不是依成本，然后来进行选择。
These days too, volunteers are far more aware of the long-term outcomes of their efforts. In many cases, volunteers rightly expect to be able to see webcam or website updates on projects they've helped with, even after they've returned to their home country. It's essential to ensure that projects are properly planned and funded. All projects must be tied to measurable outcomes, so volunteers have the satisfaction of reaching a target or a goal.
其实呢，大部分的志工都非常清楚他们努力所换来的长期成果。在很多的案例当中呢，我们看到这些志工他们回到自己的祖国，可是他们会很自然的期待可以看到说他们协助进行的计划，他们网络摄影机摄影啊，或者是一些网站的更新、资讯更新，然后来确保这些计划做正确的规划跟募款呢，也是很重要的。所以这些计划呢，必须要有可衡量的一个成果，让这些志工呢有达成指标或目标的这个满足感。
A third project-related challenge is to avoid the temptation to shore up or even replace paid workers with volunteers. This can often be a temptation in the early days of volunteer programs when it becomes clear just how much a group of committed volunteers can achieve. In the long term, it's a mistake, leading to declining community support for volunteers. It can also place an enormous burden on volunteers to try to achieve the same outcomes as paid workers, putting unfair pressure on the volunteers. Ultimately, the pressure usually results in volunteers leaving because they feel unsupported and that their efforts are being taken for granted.
那第三个跟计划相关的挑战呢，就是要避免希望以志工来稳住或者是取代。在志工计划初期，当一群很热心投入的志工，他们可以达成的成就变得很明确可见的时候呢，就会发生这种问题。以长期的角度来看，这是一种错误，因为这样会让这些社区的人民呢对志工的支持下降。另外呢，也会对于这些希望达到跟知心人员相同成果的志工呢，为他们带来非常大的负担。这样的压力往往会导致这些志工他们会求去，因为他们会觉得不被支持，而且他们所付出的精力也被社区的人员看成理所当然。
Finally, volunteer involvement must not be above accountability. This means that when public money and donations are funding volunteer programs, our expectations for good outcomes should be high. It also means that we must apply the same strict standards for health and safety and good management to volunteer projects as we apply with our paid employees. The responsibilities are exactly the same.
那另外呢，就是一个责任这样的一个问题哦，就是当我们用公款跟捐款，然后来资助我们的志工计划的时候，我们应该要期待说，成果是非常好的。那这也表示我们必须要跟对知心职员相同严格的标准，然后来进行对这些志工计划的卫生安全跟管理。那这些就是志工跟知悉人员，他们其实在这一方面的职责是相同的。
Valuing diversity is essential in all walks of life, and volunteers are no different. If an international volunteer has limited language skills, we need to find a way to effectively welcome this person to our programs, using strategies like the ones I mentioned earlier. Our programs need to be inclusive and to recognise that all contributions are valued. Telling volunteers away once can be enough to put them off volunteering for life, a lost opportunity.
那如同大家所知道，我们尊重差异是非常非常重要的，这在志工活动也是一样重要。如果某一个国际志工他语言技能有限的话，我们就应该要想办法来克服像我们之前所提到的那些方法。那我们希望可以用不同的方式来欢迎并且来鼓励这些人加入我们计划。我们计划必须要有包容性，而且要认同所有贡献都受到重视。一次的轻忽就可以让一个志工他永远的离开志工服务这样子的一个领域，所以呢，这样是非常可惜的。
Young volunteers also need flexible models for effective engagement. Unlike older volunteers who can often commit to a set day and time for volunteering on a regular basis, young volunteers have many competing demands on their time. It's essential to research thoroughly and look for ways in which the program can fit the time young volunteers have available. Young volunteers need to have easy and achievable access to regular programs and set up a lifelong habit of volunteering.
年长志工呢，他们往往可以投入固定的时间跟日子在志工服务计划当中，但是呢，年轻的志工可能比较不一样，他们需要比较灵活的一个投入模式。那他们对于时间的安排有多方面的需求，所以我们必须要非常仔细的研究，然后找出时间可以跟这个年轻志工配合的计划。年轻志工对于固定的计划呢，就是我们需要让他们可以很容易的取得并参与这样的一些计划，然后让他们把志工服务变成一个终身的习惯。
Young volunteers also need to be part of program development whenever possible. Mentors and role models help encourage participation and show what is possible to achieve. In our own organisation, we offer a number of trainee positions suitable for young people, and we've also recruited 2 young people to join our board following an internal review.
那年轻志工呢，他们有很多，就是他们 你需要让年轻志工尽可能的成为计划发展的一部分。那良师跟榜样呢，就是有助于鼓励他们参与。那之后呢，我们就可以看到很多很棒的成果。在本机构当中，我们有一些适合年轻人的训练职位，而且我们每一次都会至少招募2个年轻人，在经过内部审查之后呢，加入我们的委员会。
In other industries and businesses, you measure the value of sales or the number of customers to gain a true idea of how the company is performing. You end up with a profit margin, which tells you that the company is trading well, and your aim is usually to increase the profit margin every year.
在业界跟企业界当中呢，你会借由销售值的衡量，或者是顾客的多少，然后来看看说这公司它运作的如何。那结果呢，你就会有一个获利率，然后让你知道说，公司营业非常良好，而你的目标往往就是每一年提高这个获利率。